Arcade magic turns tragic. On Amigos, everything Amiga. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Amigos. I'm John.
And I'm Aaron.
Today, Aaron, we're talking about Outrun. Aaron, have you ever been part of any sort of police chase? I know you're sort of a member of the force. Has it ever happened to you out with a work truck?
Well, it's funny because back before the wave of vehicles that BA got before I got there were cop cars,
BA
the lights and everything.
You? That's awesome.
No, BA, breath alcohol. But the people before I got there got cop cars, but they didn't want them because whenever they drove up, people I hated them. Or flipped them off, because they thought they were real cops. And they had no gun. So they were just like, if someone came up and said, I don't like cops, I'm going to mess you up. You're like, breathe in this. But, so no, I have not been in a cop chase that involved cops chasing someone, but I've been chased by a cop.
Oh, do tell.
One time. Well, I had a friend of mine. I had a little car in high school, or just
what
out
kind
of high
car
school.
was it? Set the stage.
Oh God, what was it? I was driving. It was like I think it was like a hatchback. It wasn't a Rabbit, but it was something in that ballpark.
Okay.
And
Little
so
Honda
I had
Civic hatchback.
And no one I knew had a car except for me.
Wow.
And so
you were popular.
Well, amongst I was used a lot. But anyway, we were going from one place to another place, but there were too many people. So I had two people sitting up front in the passenger seat and four people stuffed in the back seat, but I had another guy. So there was nowhere to put him. I said, listen, he said, listen, I'll just ride in the trunk.
Yeah.
This wasn't a hatchback. This car had a trunk. Okay. I know that, so I take that back. So whatever it was, I had a trunk. It might have been a Nova.
I can't believe you don't remember what make and model a car
It was a law. This was one of my first cars, and it probably wasn't even mine.
I can tell you every single make and model of every car I've ever owned.
Not me. I can't tell you the make and model of the car I drive now. Anyways, doesn't matter. So we're driving down through Hurricane, and I didn't know this at the time, but I found out when I looked out the window at the back, because I thought my buddy was going to get back there and we were going to close the trunk. That's not what his plan was. His plan was to sit back there with the trunk open and smoke as we drove. He was just sitting in the back smoking something on his butt, smoking a cigarette as we drove. So anyway, I thought to myself, so eventually I saw that he was doing that. I'm like, oh my God. So I'm like, well, what I'll do is instead of taking the main road down through Hurricane, I'll take one of the back roads. Well, of course, you know what that means. That's where the cop's at.
That's right.
So we drive by this cop, and I'm sure his jaw hit the floor as he sees this idiot in the trunk smoking a cigarette. So the lights come on, and I'm looking at him. And this happened twice in my life. I'm like, I'm going to run.
That's right.
I'm sure people somewhere can relate to there's a feeling where you're just like, I'm going to go for it. I don't know. Which was dumb because the car was full of people and it was a crappy car. And it was in the middle of Hurricane, and it's a cop car. And so I hit the gas for like 1 second and then I caught myself like, what am I doing? And I went one block and then pulled over. And the funny thing, and the cop came in, he goes, you can't have that guy riding in the back of the car. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry, officer. I thought he was going to shut the trunk. He goes, you can't even put him in the trunk with it shut. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, well, what do you want me to do? He goes, you got to ride up here. So we stuffed this guy into the back seat with the four other people. So there were 5 people. Thank God this guy was thin.
This was before there was a seatbelt law, so they couldn't get you on that.
No, they didn't give a crap about that. And so we crunched these people into the back seat, and I managed to get to my house from there. And the guy didn't even ticket me.
Wow.
But that was one of 2 times. One other time I was delivering pizza, and the cop hopped me, and I was like, man, I'm going to go for it. And I was in a Nova. It was a Grand Am. Take that back. And I was like, I think I'm gonna try to get through one of these hills or whatever. But again, my common sense kicked in pretty early in the chase, and I did not. It wasn't really a chase, but I'd say those are the 2 closest I've ever came to actually getting chased by a cop.
The first time were you on Virginia Avenue when you got stopped?
I was on Virginia Avenue.
Do you know why I knew that?
Why?
That's the only place in West Virginia where you could say I went down another block. That's the only place in Hurricane that has a block system.
That's true. You're right. But you got it, Boat. That's it. What about? I know you haven't been in a police chase.
No, I've only been pulled over twice in my whole life. And I immediately pulled over and accepted my punishment, my just desserts. What about the time when you got pulled over for not coming to a complete stop out of your intersection? Did you ever think about busting out right there?
Every time I've ever been pulled over, I thought about busting out. When I see people on TV and they get caught and they're like, "Listen, I don't know why I did that." I believe them.
Yeah,
because there's part of me that's why it's so funny that I work for the fuzz, because I mean my dad's real paranoid, because Dad was a real troublemaker back in his day, and so like it's ingrained in me, the distrust,
right?
So it's the fact that I work for the cops it's always there's always an internal battle.
Well, you can bring them down from the inside.
Well, by default, I'm crooked. I mean, real crooked. So it's hard for me to. But I mean, I've been a good boy since I joined up with the police.
That's good. They set you on the straight and narrow. Aaron,
you got that
let's talk
right.
about Outrun.
Brace yourself, Boat.
US Gold present from Sega.
Yeah. Oh man. On the Friday Disaster stream, I used the old theme from Savage, that we played a couple months ago, because it's so bombastic. But that is a very, very close second for most idiotic, insane opening of all times. It makes no sense.
Fozzie Bear doing the vocals. It's great.
And the funny thing is, I mean, well, we'll get into the Amiga version here in a minute, but I mean, that opening, that bombastic, colorful opening, is the biggest, like, red herring of all time. It's a complete debacle. But we'll get to it, Boat. But we're talking about Outrun.
Let's talk about the arcade version of Outrun.
Yes, sir.
Okay, because this is let's be honest. This is one of the legendary arcade games of all the times.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
If you were going to make a Mount Rushmore of racing games, this would have to be on it. Even if you don't like this game, you'd have to put it on there.
Just for fun, just name a couple of your Mount Rushmore racing games. I mean, all arcade. Give me a couple.
All arcade. Well, I mean, this is on there. It would be this. It would be Daytona, and it would be Virtual Racing. I think that's it.
I put Pole Position on there.
I hate Pole Position. I think it's
hate it or love it. It was when it came out, it was a huge deal.
That's true. I mean, if you're doing the Mount Rushmore, the most important arcade racing games, you've got to have Pole Position on.
And I might stick Turbo on there too. It was awful. It was awful impressive back in the day.
Yeah. So this thing came out in 1986. Came straight out of Sega in Japan.
They were on fire.
That's right. This thing was programmed by Yu Suzuki. Okay, you want to talk about the man, Yu Suzuki? If there's a the man in video games, it's Yu Suzuki. Yeah. He joined Sega in 1983 as a programmer. Okay, and back then, Sega, they made arcade machines, but their bread and butter, where they got most of their income, was through their home division, through their SG-1000 and their consoles. Their arcade business was sort of faltering at the time, if you can believe it. He made a game called Championship Boxing for the SG-1000. Now get this, Aaron, this is insane. Sega was so impressed by Championship Boxing for the SG-1000, they just made a bunch of cabinets, stuck SG-1000s in them, and released it as an arcade game.
Wow.
That's how good this guy.
You could get away with that in the early 80s. You could just do it. I love that.
That's right.
That's great.
His first big arcade hit was Hang On, the motorcycle game.
Oh yeah.
You see Hang-Ons. You still see Hang-Ons to this day.
Yeah.
The
the riding ones. You see those
riding
you see those all,
right,
yeah.
right.
Because they're
now,
unique.
You're not a
many
huge
like
fan of Hang On, right?
Well, listen, I mean, I will say the ones where you actually get on the bike, that's pretty rad. But I mean, I'm not good at it, but I mean, that's the appeal, right? Getting on the bike.
Right. Getting on the bike, leaning into the turns. Yeah. That's where you have it. He pioneered that system. It's called the Tycon gaming system. And Hang On didn't really use it, but he kind of, it established the fact that you could get on a thing and it could move and impact your play. This is sort of like, if you look at what we would call the early environmental cabs that were available in the United States, you always think about, Tron is a big one, the environmental cab, Pole Position, Star Wars, they had sit down cabs. But when you come down to it, the gameplay on those was the same whether you were sitting down or standing up. The controls were the same. Hang On really made an impression because it was the first time that you were doing something different with your body that impacted gameplay. And Outrun really took it to the next level because you had, in one of these Tycon motion controlled hydraulic simulators, you'd feel the whole cabinet, shift with you as you rolled through. And obviously, this was huge. This was a huge hit. People never seen anything like this. And this was really the turning point with Sega when they started making more money from their coin-op sales than their home console sales. I thought that was really interesting because if you look at their biggest competitor, Nintendo, obviously Nintendo was a huge, player in the arcades. And I'm not exactly sure at what point Famicom/NES sales overtook their arcade sales. I would wager the guess that it was pretty early on. Yeah. But it would be interesting to see how that graph worked when that happened versus when it happened with Sega. So anyway, Space Harrier was the first Tycon game. Space Harrier where you're flying around, you're flying an F-16 and you're blowing up stuff. And then came Outrun in '86. Aaron, did you ever play any of those did you ever play an environmental Space Harrier before?
No. I did. In fact, I never saw an environmental Space Harrier. The one I saw most of all was like G-Lock, I think was one, and the what's the other Sega airplane shooting game? God, I should know it by now. But
G-Lock is the big one. That's right. The one I would think of.
Yeah, but yeah, I didn't give those a whirl. I was a big boy. I wasn't squeezed into one of those bad boys. I can tell you that.
Yeah. Well, that's sort of the problem is that they made all these cabinets for Japanese style people.
Afterburner. That's what I'm trying to think of. That's the other one I saw would be Afterburner.
Afterburner, right? Yeah. In fact, when I was talking about all that stuff that I said about Space Harrier, I was actually thinking about Afterburner. Space Harrier did come first. That did not come in a special Tycon.
Yeah, I was surprised. I was like, "What?" Yeah. I was like, "Man, I didn't know that."
Outrun is the first one, and then Space Harrier followed that. I apologize for the mistake. Now, Yu Suzuki didn't rest on his laurels with Outrun. He pioneered the kart racing genre. He beat Mario Kart to the punch by 5 years with Power Drift. That was really the first
I remember
kart racing game. G-Lock was the first 360 gyroscopic cabinet that could spin you all around. And with those, he could have retired and just said, yeah, I was the super scalar guy. I was the environmental guy, but no. He went on, Aaron. In '92, he developed a little game we like to call Virtual Racing. Okay. Then in '93, the next year, it was time for Virtua Fighter. That little obscure hit. Okay. Daytona USA, also developed by Yu Suzuki. '94, that's right. Virtua Cop, Yu Suzuki joint. And in '99, his last really big game was Shenmue. Okay. Did you ever play the old Shenmue on the Dreamcast?
I did. I didn't get into it really. It was a slow game. It was hard. And it was weird. And it was was incredibly Japanese.
It's a weird, hard, slow game. But one of the things that came out of it was that, a lot of time, well, in video gaming history, these things have always existed all the way back to Dragon's Lair. But he coined the term quick time event. in Shenmue, where you'd have a cutscene that would play out, and then you'd have to do a special task with the control pad, push up at a certain time or push A at a certain time, just like in Dragon's Lair. But he coined that term "quick time event." So whenever somebody mentions that, Yu Suzuki came up with that term.
He gets a quarter every time.
Yeah, that's right. He headed Sega's AM2 team for 18 years. So when people are just like, man, the industry was garbage, and then the bitmaps came along. I'm like, listen, the bitmaps did crap. You want to talk about somebody that changed the face of gaming? Let's talk about Yu Suzuki.
Why are you bringing up the bitmaps? They didn't even do arcade stuff.
Yeah, that's right. They couldn't do it. They weren't good enough.
Show me anybody that you set their record against Yu Suzuki, and you're like, oh yeah, they match up great. There's like one or two people ever.
That's right.
I mean, give me a break.
Hiroshi Kawaguchi did the music. The music is awesome in this game.
Oh yeah.
He also did the music for Hang On, Space Harrier, and Fantasy Zone. Just incredible. The tracks in this game are Passing Breeze, Splash Wave, Magical Sound Shower, and then when you get to the high score screen, my personal favorite, Last Wave. Yeah. The mournful track plays there.
Very lovely.
But... Flack always talks about having the high score screen from the C64 version of Commando play at his funeral.
Yeah.
Last Wave wouldn't be a bad choice, Aaron. If you're looking, have you started planning your funeral playlist yet?
If you think about it, Last Wave is fitting for several reasons.
Right. Exactly. It works on multiple levels. And the people that will come to your funeral, Aaron, they'll know. They'll get it.
Uh-huh.
So that's a little Hiroshi Kawaguchi. Let's talk a little bit about the game itself. So this game is it's funny. Yu Suzuki never ever called this a racing game. Do you know what he called it, Aaron? He called it a driving simulator. This was the first ever driving simulator video game. And if you think about it, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Because you're not racing to get to the end. It's not a set number of laps. You don't have any opponents. You're just driving. You're driving to get to a checkpoint, and then you get to another checkpoint. And in this game, there are 15 total tracks, okay? And to complete the game, you must complete 5 out of the 15. Well, how does this work? Well, every so often, you get to a branching pathway, and you have to choose left or right. Depending on where you choose, you go to the next section. So this is one of the early arcade games that really had a lot of replayability. Even if you mastered the game going on one set path, you could go back and you could try any number of ways to complete the game. It's pretty cool.
In this game, actually.
It is. In this game, you are piloting a Ferrari Testarossa, and right down to the horsey there on the back of the car. It's funny, in some of the games, the horse takes on more of a duck persona in some of the ports. But it's funny. This is, of course, back in the early days of licensing. Sega, they made this game, and they didn't even think to say, hey, maybe you should license this, since this is a blatant ripoff of a Ferrari product. Aaron, do you know that Ferrari is Italy's biggest company?
No, I had no idea. Wow, that's crazy.
Isn't that nuts? Yeah. So Ferrari, they don't mess around. And so they eventually settled out of court. They probably gave him some money. And it wouldn't be until Outrun 2 when the car would become an official Ferrari. This game, Aaron, it's funny. The soundtrack is world famous. Everybody knows the soundtrack for this game, but some of the game's audio samples were actually corrupted before production started due to some of the master ROM chips failing, and the glitch wasn't noticed until Sega was preparing a soundtrack box set for the game's 20th anniversary. So this game, all through the arcade, all through the home releases, the Sega Ages ports and everything, the sound is not exactly as Kawaguchi wanted it to be. And it wasn't until fairly recently when these things were all fixed. It's interesting, too. The soundtrack is when you think about games that had soundtracks that shipped on cassette with the game, this is what's another one that you can think of?
Well, there's what was that crazy game we put on the ZX? I think didn't have a cassette with it that.
That's right. The one with the comedian that everybody loves. I can't think of what that game is called, but you're right. That one shipped with the cassette. I always think about 720 also. It has that boom box on the top that I think has a cassette. I think some of the home versions came with a cassette that had the soundtrack on that. So this is another one of those.
I think Star Flight 2 or something on the Amiga had some kind of musical secondary thing with it.
The secondary thing, yeah. I always think that's cool. I don't think there's any shame in if you can't put the music in the game like you want it. Almost everybody back in the 80s, if you could afford a computer, you could afford a boombox or a cassette player.
Yeah.
Who didn't have one? And so you pop that on while you're playing. That's great. That's fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, hey, and it was perfect for the time. Not to mention you get the authentic music that just like you remember it. So it's just nice,
Right. So as you can imagine, this game did great. In 1986, this was the top-selling upright or cockpit arcade cabinet in Japan. It was Japan's highest grossing game during the latter half of 1986. Now, it wasn't the huge hit that you might think. It was only the 7th highest grossing game of all of 86. It came out a little bit later in the year in that game, but it became the highest grossing game of 87. So what my guess is this probably came out in like October or November of 86. And so it really didn't get rolling until 87. In North America, it was the highest selling game in 87. And it was the highest grossing arcade game of 87 in the United States and the UK. So this thing made tons of money. Obviously, there weren't really a lot of racing games that could compete with it. You had, I'm trying to think. I think Chase HQ probably came out a couple years later. You were still kind of in the throes of pole position at this time. Yeah. There were probably other games that were out there, but it just seems like in my mind the lineage goes from pole position right to Outrun, and then it sort of branches out after that. But this game, you can still buy it. It commands a high price, as you can imagine. Arcade 1-Up did produce a new version of it, a sit-down version. Neil from RMC, when we used to do This Week in Retro together, he compared it to a child's bed. It does look, it's a very toy-like looking thing. It doesn't look great. You can buy the original sit-down cab at some online resellers for around $4,000. I didn't find any machines currently for sale on eBay. I think this is a machine that people tend to hold on to.
I don't know if this is in your notes, but I read this a couple years ago, and I was always amused. You mentioned that the lineage. You're right. Pole position. Really, the closest thing you could equate to this would be a Hang On. Really, mm-hmm. I think that would probably be the next one in line. But I always read this, and I assume it's true, is that Suzuki, his original idea for this game was to make. He loved the movie The Cannonball Run.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. And so he was trying
that makes sense.
And he'd planned on making this a race across the U.S. Now, I was reading this on Wiki the other day because he was doing scout locations and stuff, and the president of Sega was like, listen, the U.S. isn't safe, and also it's too big and too boring. And so that's why they so the location is sort of based on, they scouted locations, and believe it or not, they went out and scouted locations for this, just like they photographed and recorded a car. But they went all over Europe and so these are loosely based on European locations, which is kind of neat. So we sort of got screwed, I guess, boat, because I did think this was America until I read that, because you got, especially it seems like the American premise. You get the Ferrari, you get the blonde. It's like you're starting in California or something. You're going, I don't know how in my mind, it never occurred to me that this could possibly be Europe. But that's what I've heard. That's what they've got on Wiki as well. When this game came out, you were talking about how popular it was in the U.S. This thing hit like a ton of bricks. Like, I remember the first time I saw it, I went to this arcade and it's sitting there. I'm like, holy smokes, look at this piece of work. And because the wheel drove itself. in the demo mode. And so you'd walk by and it would be playing itself literally. The wheel would be turning, which
that was like
cool. I was like, how the hell is that? What's happening here? I mean, I remember walking up to this thing and being stunned, like, oh. And then I saw what was going on. I'm like, get me some money. I gotta be getting to play it. I would have been a bigger fan of this if I wasn't so bad at it, because it's not an easy game.
No.
I mean, you could get better at it, but I've never been great at it, you know. But this thing, you're talking about blowing away the competition. It blew away the competition. It's funny when there was an arcade at the mall called Fun City that was open until a couple years ago. They moved. And one of the first time I ever went into the Fun City, in the very back of the arcade was this machine, the stand-up. This is just like maybe 5 years ago, but it stood back there like a god, like surveying the arcade, like, here I am. And the first game I played at Fun City, after all these years, I just grabbed that wheel, grabbed hold of the stick, hit the gas. I was like, oh yeah, this is the one. When these things, in the late 90s, when the arcade games, when no one cared, these things you could get for a pittance. Because there were zillions of them. You could get them anywhere. You could get these things routinely for under $500.
Wow.
And sometimes far less. I mean, I saw these things going, and one of the reasons is they're, the wheel system's not the easiest to keep up. You know, anytime you've got,
is it as bad as the one on what's the machine that you guys had? Road Blasters? Is it as bad
hard
as that?
driving?
Hard driving?
I would say probably not. I can't be, because hard driving's insane inside. I've never been inside one of these things, but I've always heard. I mean, I'm not saying they're not reliable, but anytime you've got, like, I've owned 2 Road Blasters in my life, and like anytime you have pedals and gear shifts and stuff like that, and analog steering, it's a level of repair that's up different difficulty in getting parts than your normal joysticks and buttons, you know. But I used to see these things all the time. All the time. It's just a lot like, when I think of games I saw tons of, this was right there with like Crystal Castles, you know, or Tetris. I mean, there were tons of these things, but this thing was an unbelievable, incredible thing to play when it came out. I have seen the cockpit version where you actually get into the little car and it moves, and they do look those look less dumb than what you were talking about with Neil. That you're right, that one looks real dumb. The arcade at home one, But none of them are what I would call make you look cool to the chicks. I don't think.
Well, this was the first run. I really think they when Cruising USA came out and they had that environmental cab with that. That was a machine. That looked so awesome. You got in that thing. Remember when that was at the mall? How great that was.
Yeah. I think this is a brilliant machine. I think the gameplay elements. She's right. There's no explosions. You're not racing. It is a racing simulator. I mean, this reminds me. The bit where you pick your music at the beginning, I'd never seen that in any game, okay?
No.
That was another thing. You're just like, can't believe I get to pick the music I listen to? Holy crap.
Right. And it's like I'm there. It's like it's me. Yeah.
And here's the thing. How many times do I say this? It sounds dumb to say now, but at the time, this was a mind blower. You're just like, I can't believe it. And it looked like a radio, you know? And then lastly, I know it sounds stupid. The branching paths was the most brilliant thing. You get all these scenes, but you have to play over and over to see them all. And you know they're out there because of that big overhead map you see when you lose. Brilliant from a money-making perspective, because you're showing people, hey, here's what you didn't see, which is a ton. And you're like, I got to get there. How many times do I have to try to get there? It's money. I'm sure this was a big earner back in the day, Bo. But yes, this one I have nothing but fond memories of. I mean, I remember distinctly the very first time I saw it. I think I was at a Hills when I saw it the first time. And I mean, it blew my mind. So yeah, an all-time classic, stone cold classic on this one.
How is that compared to the Amiga version here?
Well, I mean, that intro, Bo, that intro's pretty good. So let's shift gears. And I mean, we're downshifting here big time to the Amiga version of this. So let's get into it. Released in 89 and developed by Probe. And trust me, we all felt the probe on this one. And released by U.S. Gold. Fool's Gold vote. This is, I mean, let's just get it out of the way. This is probably, if I had to pick a game on the Amiga that's the most reviled game, and the thing is, it's not the worst game, not even close. But I'm talking about the game that makes people the maddest, that makes them the most angry. This is the game I would pick. It's infamous, it's notorious, and it's, I've never met anyone that gave it the big thumbs up. It's a big dud. And so I'm just going to list, when we did this, I thought, I'm going to do my best to be objective, and I'm going to try to figure out what went wrong. All right, so again, this was developed by Probe. Probe is up and down as a developer, Bo. They really are. We've played a bunch of their games. We played Alien 3, Golden Axe, Primal Rage, Road Blasters. I've played, and they've done a bunch of other games. Mortal Kombat 2, Savage is one of theirs, by the way. Savage! Solomon's Key, TMNT, the coin-op version, Tiger Road. They did a bunch of stuff. And so I thought, well, Probe, they're up and down. You can't just say the developer stinks, because they don't. They've done some good games. So let's look at the people who actually worked on the game and see how they did. So this was coded. The coders are listed as Ian Morrison and Martin Kane. Now, I looked at what Ian Morrison had done. So listen to this. I'm going to read you what he did, and then we're going to talk about how they were, okay? He did Chase HQ 2, okay? He did Cisco Heat. He did Hydra, and he did Road Blasters, okay? So you can see those games all have a lot in common, okay? On Lemon, Cisco Heat, Chase HQ2 has a 6. Cisco Heat has a 4. Hydra has a 5, and Road Blaster has a 5. So let's just say these are midland to low efforts, okay? But this guy did have a genre, which was a racing or chasing type genre.
Listen, it's sort of like your journeyman pitcher. You've got to have some guys that are, they're coders that will put out an average to below average effort consistently throughout the years.
You need a Jesse Orozco to be out there. The other coder, Martin Kane, the only game he's credited on is Turbo Outrun 4. You got me on that one. The graphics on this, so get this. You've got two graphics guys here. Alan Tompkins. Now listen, Alan Tompkins did Falcon CDTV, which is a real popular game. He did Megalomania, which is a real popular game. He did Mr. Heli, which is a real popular game, and he did some other stuff, heavy metal and so he worked on some pretty quality stuff. The other graphics guy, Alan Greer, worked on 1943, Chase HQ2, Cisco, Hydra, Road Blasters, a lot of the same stuff. But I read a little blurb from an interview because they were asking what the heck happened on Outrun. He said, I had very little to do with Outrun. He remembers redrawing some minor details on the card on the loading screen, but he wasn't the original artist at the time.
You know what they say? Brilliant inventions have thousands of authors. Duds are orphans.
Yeah, well, he's throwing Alan Tompkins under the bus here in terms of the graphical stylings. The music on this was done by Jason C. Burke, who did on the Amiga that Afterburner, Feud, Heavy Metal, Hellfire, Akari Warriors, Pac-Land, a few others. And I would say of all of the litany of failures in this, he's probably the least likely to be smacked because the music, it's not the worst, in my opinion. Now, we heard that incredible opening. We got to talk about that just out of the gate since we played it earlier. The Amiga opening for Outrun, the Savage-like opening. It's like, remember Owner of a Lonely Heart? It's like orchestra strikes to beat the band.
Well, it's Trevor Horn. Trevor Horn is who pioneered the orchestra strikes and that sort of style.
You love that, don't you?
No, I hate it.
I know you do. I know you hate it. So what did you think when you first loaded this up? I remember we were probably together. I found that 8-year-old video of you playing this, and even at the time, you seemed baffled as to what was happening.
Well,
in its opening.
It's funny. Outrun in the arcades is a bright, happy jaunt. It's a positive, whimsical endeavor.
Yeah.
And so when the first thing that you hear and when you fire up this game is some sort of like faux death metal guy announcing that US Gold presents this game.
No, it's Sega. Sega
presents. And then you've got the orchestra hits and it's just like it's setting you up for an experience that's totally opposite of what this game should be. I can see that, like, for Savage, it makes perfect sense. Yeah. Because Savage is a game where you're a freaking savage and you're destroying dudes, This is a game about driving your real fast car with your hot chick, having a good time, playing Passing Breeze on the stereo. So it boggles the mind. Why they would. Now I realize that in the 80s people were just maybe they thought, hey, people are going to be real impressed with this opening. It sounds awesome. It's got some attitude, but that's not what I don't know if you've ever heard people that are Sega fans talk about this era, but they talk about it like the blue sky era of Sega, where everything is bright colors, everything is dolphins leaping out of the water and crossing the screen, stuff like that. Fun. Yeah, fun. And the intro to this sets you up for something that's not fun, which is true. Good job, intro.
It's like a fighting game intro. It's what it reminds me. There's evil like laughing. There's all these orchestra strikes, and then they go bananas with the engine, and it's all. But what makes it worse is they set the intro on a screen from the arcade, and you're like, oh man, when this thing loads up, I'm going to be playing that.
Well,
that's its number one fail.
That's the game's ultimate sin. Okay? Yeah, because you can put whatever you want on the box cover. Yeah, and you can sell the game however you like with a really nice painting on the front. But when you put a screenshot of the arcade game on the loading screen, and then you load something that does not look like that, you are basically punching everybody that bought this game in the face.
Yeah, or lower. So the word on the street, and I've read this a couple places, so I'm going to take it as canon. This game apparently was converted. In fact, I read this when an interview with Alan Greer. This game was converted wholesale over from the ST version. Okay. And I looked at the ST, so I thought to myself, hey, what if the ST version has that crazy opening? And it does have the picture, but it does not have the crazy opening. I didn't see it anywhere. And I looked.
The first time that I loaded this up, I was convinced that the open was some sort of like crack screen or something like that. Because that's exactly what, if you're trying to be elite with your boys and send out some greets, you're going to make an opening like that.
Yes, I thought the exact same thing. I remember the first time I loaded this up and that came up and I thought, man, that's weird, but this is going to look great. And then, man, that's when it hits you. It doesn't look great. It looks bad. So let's get into the game proper, Boat. Now, so we can tell you right now, when you start the game, you're going to be disappointed. Okay, there you go. So this game, of course, if you play the arcade game with this, you start out, you pick your song, and you go. That's not the way this one starts. You hit the button, and you're pretty much getting ready to go. There is a flag guy there, and something, I guess, sort of like a crowd, and you're in the desert for some reason, and then you go. And so you're asking yourself, where's the changing of the tunes? What's going on here? Where's the options menu? Where's anything? Well, you find out when you pause the game, when you hit a key on the keyboard, you get like an overhead, a top menu line.
It's very Sierra-esque. Or DOS
It is Sierra-esque. You're right. That's exactly what it reminds me of. That's a good call, Boat. And so you use your joystick, if you're using the joystick, to go up there and you can go through the different options. What are the options? Well, amongst the options are you can change the song. You can also turn the song off. You can mess with the sound effects. You can give yourself more or less cars. You can get information is another one you can do. So this is all goofy, but I mean it does give you a lot of options. But it's not like the arcade. Now the one thing you can do is you can switch your music during the game if you want to. That's true. So I guess that yay for that. Yeah. There's a bonus, but otherwise this interface is dumb and lazy. In fact, a lot of this game it strikes me as lazy. But just out of the gate, but what do you think about that as your interface?
Well, it reminds me, it's a very sort of like, it's something that I expect to see out of Blitz Basic, to be honest with you. It's the lowest effort way to do anything. And the thing is, when it comes down to it, if you're concerned about pleasing your audience, the number one way to please your audience when you're making an arcade port is to make the opening of the game look like the arcade.
Yeah.
And it's not hard to do. No. It's not hard to do. Every other version does it. The Master System version, I'm not talking about the other micros because they were the same low effort crap, but I'm talking about outside Europe where people cared. There was a feeling that, hey, if we put the radio on the screen and you can see a little hand come down, even if the hand doesn't look so good, even the radio doesn't look so good, we're going to make the person feel like they're playing the arcade game. And that's all you wanted. The expectations for a game like this are really so low. They're so low, and they could have been met so easily if not for the fact that I think that the people that were behind this were either, if we're being generous, we'll say they were very time crunched, but really it's just it's a question of maybe they misjudged what people are looking for when they play an arcade port.
Well, first of all, I agree with almost everything you said. I mean, keep in mind that like this, the ports of this that did get to Europe on the Master System and on the Mega Drive. So I mean, they cared about the Europeans. It wasn't just like they were.
No, because those were ports that were not developed in Europe.
Right, but
I'm talking about the MSX. I'm talking about
the 8-bit and 16-bit developers didn't care about the Europeans.
I'm talking about the computer ports as well.
Clearly, they didn't care about the Americans either. So you know, if let's assume
America was not even a factor to these guys.
They didn't
care how many copies of Outrun they sold in America.
Well, there's a DOS version of this too.
I don't even know if this game got an NTSC release.
Yeah, it did. Absolutely. It got American release. So? In fact, I played the NTSC release. But not to me, I mean, if you look at if this is one of those games that got ported to everything from the ST, the C64, the MSXs, the NEC, PC Engine got a great port of this.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, this game got ported everywhere, but the developers varied wildly.
I will say DOS is way better. The DOS version is way better than the Amiga version.
They were probably yeah. I mean,
that's an 89.
Probably the most Americans played.
But anyways, you're right. Make an effort. And here's what I think. I think this game comes down to one thing. They did not want to do anything above and beyond the road graphics. This is why you've got this stupid menu instead of a proper menu for options. This is why when the game is, in the arcade version of this, when you go to one lane or the other, you know what I mean? There's a sequence where the road splits and you get to pick a path. Not in this version. You don't get to pick a path. You just go to the right or the left of the screen, and that's your path. And it just freezes there for a minute, and then you move on. So there's no cool transition. There's no nothing. You just like it's sort of like a whole different. There's no split of the screen. You know why? Because they didn't want to code that in. Is why they didn't want to code anything in. If you look at the map. Like this supposedly has all 15 of the different stages. You've got stages like Lakeside, Seaside Town. I watched someone play every stage of this, and I played a bunch of them myself. They don't look right. They're just rehashes. They don't like the Seaside Town. There's no sea there, and the Lakeside there's no lake. It's like this is just like more a color palette swaps, But anyway, we'll get to that. Let's talk about the gameplay proper. You start the game, and if you've never played Outrun, you've got a gas pedal, a brake, and you've got a low and high gear. and you've got your steering wheel. That's the game. So on the Amiga version, you've got your button to swap the gears. You push forward or pull backwards for brake and gas. There's also the ability to play with the mouse, which I'll admit I did not try because I always hate that, but you can. I saw it in the options. This game is set up just like the arcade, exactly the same screen set up with the time, the score, the lap time, and your speed, and at the bottom right, the stage you're on, and a little pyramid that shows you which path you're taking through the game. So that's all the same in the arcade. One of the major differences in this, well, there's two major ones. One, the frame rate is... oh man, is it bad and low. I mean, it's the dirt worst. It's so low. And secondly, the angle that you view your car from is like, and this guy does this in every one of his games. It drives me nuts. It's too low. The angle is not right. So it doesn't look quite like Outrun. But I could forgive that if it wasn't for the frame rate. I mean, the frame rate in this is just the worst. It runs like crap. Even on an accelerated Amiga, it runs like crap. It's just a horribly unplayable debacle. What did you think about the gameplay of this thing, Boat?
When you play a racing game, the most important thing... Well, let me ask you, Aaron.
Yeah, man.
What is the most important thing to you when you play a racing game?
The sense of speed, Boat.
That's it. That's it, 100%. And when a game doesn't deliver on a sense of speed, everything else doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And this game fails in delivering any sense of speed whatsoever. It chugs along at a pace that is embarrassing to a architecture a generation below it. I mean, the Amiga is supposed to be the next gen. I mean, in 1989, in most places in the world, nobody knew what the Genesis was. And the Amiga was really standing at the vanguard of what was available for, the most you could get the most arcade-like experience out of an Amiga in terms of graphics, in terms of pure power. And the fact that this thing runs, I mean, you literally watch things go by frame, like you're playing Dungeons of Daggerath on the Coco. I mean, it is really, really bad. And it's a shame too, because let's be honest. Okay, the graphics in this game, aside from the fact that there's got to be a technical reason why they couldn't put the ocean in the game. I mean, the way that you start out, and you're starting out in the desert, in an orange and yellow desert, that's the worst way you could possibly start any endeavor.
Bad start.
There's got to be a technical reason.
There is water at a couple of stages, but you're right. The opening is iconic. It's iconic. You can't change that.
I would love to talk to and I would not be mean. I would not be my normal self. I would earnestly ask this person, what was it about the architecture of the Amiga that didn't allow you to put the ocean in the first level? Because again, when you buy an arcade port, when you punk down your hard-earned cash for a game that you take home and you want it to be like the arcade, you want to be reminded. You know it's not going to be a one-to-one thing, okay? You just want it to hit the high points. You want to see the radio. I mean, you acted like it was dumb, but it's not. That was a huge deal. Being able to pick your tune by tuning the radio.
No, I don't think that's dumb. I think that you're 100% correct. I agree with you.
You want to see that. And when you play that first stage, you want to see those sailboats on the ocean. You want to see that.
Yeah.
And there's no reason why, in my mind, the Amiga couldn't provide those two things. Maybe later on down the line they could have made some concessions, in the second, third, or fourth stages. But you've got to nail that first stage, because that's what makes the people realize, hey, I did the right thing by buying this game and not pirating it, because it's at least giving me the same feeling. Okay. So there's that, and then then there's the speed. The speed is horrible. Now, we can't neglect the fact that the two passengers in the Ferrari look like Peter Griffin and a chicken nugget with a yellow bandana.
I never noticed that, but kinda. They're not
bad.
the worst. It could have been worse. But yeah.
No, they couldn't have. They couldn't have been worse.
I mean, they're in
awful.
there.
They look, the neck fat, his neck fat is something I can only aspire to. Okay. And the chicken nugget with the bandana, that's no good. That's no good. And so you've got characters, when you play the original Outrun, you've got a handsome dude with a good looking chick. And guess what? If you're playing this game, you're probably not a handsome dude with a good looking chick. It's your typical reason why we play video games. We want to be people that we're not. We want to be those people. When I look at that neck fat, it's like I'm looking in the mirror. I hate it. Now, in the game's defense, I'll say that the HUD in this game is done extremely well. The HUD is probably the best looking HUD that we've seen from an arcade port in an Amiga. There's no black bar. There's no a name of the game, in the top or the bottom of the screen. Everything looks really good. Even the bowling pins are there, the different route options. That's all there. So I've got nothing bad to say about the HUD. And it's just, I would love to sit down with the developer of this game and just ask, was it just because it was an ST port and the ST couldn't handle it? And if they said yeah, then I'd be okay with that. I'd be like, okay, that was the order of the day, was to make the ST port, because it was the low hanging fruit. It was the least capable 16-bit machine, and port up from there. And if that's the case, but I mean, it would be fascinating to say, well, actually there was a reason why we couldn't do it, and it wasn't just related to time. I'd love to hear that story.
It's funny because I thought to myself, I'm going to get to the bottom of this. Why is this so bad? Legendarily bad. And I'll be honest with you, I'm really scraped this week. And hey, if you've got something that I haven't seen, please link it down in the show notes at the bottom. Link it in your messages. I tried like gangbusters to find interviews about this game. Again, we know it was ported wholesale right across from the ST, and we both know the ST has certain limitations when it comes to certain types of scrolling and whatnot. But the truth of the matter is, we've seen an Outrun-like experience with the Lotus 2, for example, and to a lesser extent, your some of the other racing games
Jaguar,
that we enjoyed,
something like that. Yeah.
But I mean, Jag is another one that it's okay. But I mean, we know from Lotus 2 that it can be done if you've got competent people or people ahead of time or whatever. But I mean, we both know that the reason this sucks, one of the main reasons is it was a straight port from the Atari, and they didn't care much about that version. So they really threw two versions under the bus at once. And I'm sure they sold a zillion copies because this is the way that, we've talked about what's the way the industry worked, and that beautiful screenshot that they put in the game, I'm sure that was on the back of the box, not the actual end game. And
because that's the thing, you can put that screenshot on the back and not lie when you say that is end game screen. And if you just look at this game in game, like a still shot of it, you could be like, oh, that's not too bad. I mean, the graphics on this aren't the dirt worst. I mean, they gave it the college try. If you froze this game, okay, at any point and looked at the graphics, this game blows away almost any other port in terms of the fidelity of the car, the fidelity of the other cars on the field. Unlike Lotus 2, you've got a field of a variety of different, like you've got Volkswagens, box trucks, other things. I mean, there's a lot of different cars on the field. Yeah. There's a lot going for this game in the graphical department.
And you've got sound and you've got music and sound effects at the same time.
Yes.
So, but I mean, listen, this is all irrelevant. This game is a sub Test Drive 2, like way down. That's not the speediest game, but I mean, you can play a pretty decent little driving game on that. This is below that. I mean, this is, it's not unplayable. It's just, it's not wanna-playable. Like, that's what it is. It's like, you play this, I knew I was going to be playing this week, and I was like, oh man. I was like, well, I'm going to give this a chance. And I knew the second I started playing it, I was like, oh, this is garbage. It's still garbage. It never got better, and it never will. We should mention there have been many, many attempts to do something about this in the Amiga community. This is like, I would say you got Doom And then you got this game. Like, those are the games. We got to get a Doom going, and we've got to do something about Outrun.
We've got to fix Outrun.
And so you've got Cannonball, and that series morphed into a sort of an updated version of Outrun, which just a couple days ago, or a couple weeks ago, got a update where the guy has Outrun running, like, basically with no cars, and it's on an Amiga. Of course, you've got an Amiga 030 with AGA, so it's not gonna run on a standard Amiga. I want to see somebody get this running on a proper Amiga, but that may just be too much to ask. So I guess anything you could do is something. So some people are gonna be placated. I was reading Cannonball required a Picasso retargetable graphics card.
I was going to say that was almost like you'd have to have a vampire or something.
Yeah, so what you've got. So when you go down that road, I mean, anytime you can just run the PC version of Doom on your gimmick, you're not really running it on an Amiga. You're running it on a thing that also does Amiga. You know what I mean, Bode?
Yeah, I know.
But I would love to. I think there's two golden chalices on the Amiga. Chalice 1. Running Doom on an Amiga 500, right? Chalice 2, a game of Outrun. I'm not asking for perfection, but just something that's not garbage. Something Lotus 2 level. And then you've got something there. How do you think this did in the magazines, Bode? I've got the listings right here.
Well, at the time, I'm not exactly positive that this game probably would have ranked as low as we think. Because we're living in a pre-Lotus world. We're living in a pre-Jag world. There were probably a lot of people that brought this thing home. I remember I was reading an Amitopia review. Amitopia is a Spaniard. And he was gushing about this game, talking about when he brought it home, it was like bringing the arcade machine home. A lot of the criticism comes from the fact that there were much better racing games available on the Amiga later on. But at the time of release, I would say that this was probably in the B range. Now, I could be wrong. Tell me.
So, just a few reviews here. Amiga Action in 91 gave this a 61%.
Burial.
Yeah. Pardon me?
Burial.
Oh, yeah. AUI in 89 gave this 7 out of 10, so 70%. The Games Machine in 89 gave this a 75%. Now, Amiga Power looked at this in 94, okay? So there probably was a budget release or a re-release, and they gave this thing a 5%. So we know for certain that by 94, the bloom was off the rose. Yeah. Okay,
we shouldn't even count that. Yeah,
the people at Lemon give this a 4.1 with a little poopy sign beside it. Never good. That's when you get those signals, that means I'm looking to go buy that one, because those are the ones I like.
That's a candidate for the dirt worst. You're up.
Hall of Light gave this a 42 in their lore section. So this game did not review great. But it did not review as terribly. Like, here's one for you. Keep in mind that we don't normally do this, but this is an Atari ST port. I looked at the Atari ST version. It's very, very similar. All right, so newsflash. The Atari ST User Magazine gave this a 90%. The Ace in the Advanced Computer Entertainment, the Atari version got 87% in that one. And they gave the Amiga version an 82%. Okay? Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know how you give those scores and then walk around town, but
again, reviews are always relative to what else is available in the system.
Well,
CVG, and we played enough Atari ST games to know that game is not exactly a system where there's a lot of great racing games walking around.
That's true.
This might be King of the Mountain.
Yeah, well, God, I hope not, Bode. But I really hope not. I hope that's very depressing to me and Brent. And Amiga Action gets a 61, like I mentioned. So you got low scores, but I can tell you right now, across the board, this is a hated game. Now, did we get any Discord action on this? I don't think we did this time around.
We didn't, because this is a summer of arcade game.
That's true. Good point. So we'll skip right past those. And how much do you think this thing's going for, Boder?
Now, This is interesting. I have no idea, of course. I never look. This game has a rep, as you know, among the Amiga community.
I'm guessing. How do you mean?
Well, people think that it's horrible.
Oh yeah,
and a lot of people collect horrible games. Yeah, I'm going to guess that this is probably not the cheapest game out there. I'm going to say you can get a boxed copy of this for around $50.
So I looked to see what was out there. Okay, and right now you're looking. So this came in one of those cool, like a wide box. The box is cool because it's got a picture of the arcade on it. It's cool looking. $143 is what they're asking for that one.
Okay.
So now, is that what you would sell them for? It's unlikely. You could get like the normal box. The PC had a white box that was like a normal size box. That was probably what the American version released in. I've seen those going for around $50. I mean, selling. So you may get lucky and get one like that. But I mean, this is a game just because the box is cool looking. And I know for a fact that the wide box will sell for over $80. So your mileage may vary. Would you pay that for it, Boater?
No. The most I would pay for this game is about $20.
Just before we finish up on this one, I brought the comparison screen back up just so you can see the leap, the unbelievable difference in terms of the smoothness. And as much as we bury the Amiga version, and it should be buried, I mean, it's deep beneath the Earth's crust, I do want to heap tons and tons more praise on the actual arcade version of this, because not just because this guy had better tech or whatever. Yeah, he had better technology, and they could spend money on the arcade board, yada yada. But this game was well conceived, it was well executed, and it was done by someone who knew what they wanted, and they knew how to make it interesting, and as well as make it be an earner. And I think you'll agree with me, Bo, that this is what puts this in the elite category of arcade games.
Absolutely.
Are you a sketchy tech? Do you have the right tools for the job? Have there been incidents? Next time, don't try to fix it yourself. Send your broken Amiga to Retro Rewind. Get a full diagnostic, a reasonable estimate, and the peace of mind knowing that your machine is in the hands of real technicians with decades of experience and cutting-edge repair equipment. Save 10% off your repair with the promo code Amigos10. Thank you to RetroRewind.ca for supporting this episode.
All right, Aaron, what do we got coming up next week on the Amigos Summer of Arcade?
Gosh, who knows, Bo? It's Mortal Kombat, Boat. It's the original, the big dog, Mortal Kombat. Aaron,
some would call this the ultimate console killer.
Well, here's what I call it. Another game by Probe. That's what I call it.
Back-to-back Probe.
Double. Yeah. We're getting double Probe. Not good. That's not good on any planet, Boat.
Not good. All right, guys. Thanks as always for watching. We'll see you next week when we cover Mortal Kombat. See you next time, and until then,
adios.
Amigos is made possible by contributions from listeners like you. Patreon supporters help choose the games we play, receive exclusive magnets, and get access to the Amigos Retro Gaming Discord server. Visit patreon.com/AmigosPodcast if you'd like to support the show and join our community.